welcome to the Maritime Vision podcast. I'm your host, Paul Wioli. In each episode, we bring you exclusive interviews with maritime professionals, industry experts, and students. Our guests come from different backgrounds, including shipping, yachting, offshore, supply chain, and more. Our goal is to give you all the knowledge you need to succeed in the maritime industry. Hello everyone, welcome back to a new podcast episode. And today in this podcast episode, we are joined by Harry Karatzanos. I hope I pronounced in a good way. So Harry is a S&P Shipbroker. He has more than 14 years of experience in this field and more than 19 years of experience in the maritime industry. Can you introduce yourself, please, Harry?
Hello, Paul Louis, and thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this podcast. I'm very glad that I will share some of my experience with your audience. So my involvement and my career in maritime/shipping started many years ago when I was first introduced into the Merchant Marine Academy. So I graduated as a second officer, and I had some small experience sailing on board. With tankers, and then I went for my bachelor in maritime shipping, trade, and transportation, and finally my MBA in shipping. My goal since the first day of the beginning of my studies and my career, it was to become a broker. What I hadn't figured out at that point, it was if I would be a chartering broker or an S&P broker. Currently, I am an S&P broker for around 14 years, and I have been living in Shanghai out of those 14 years, 11 years in Shanghai, China, and I was responsible for running my company's local office there. So my main markets include China, Indonesia, Southeast Asia in general, and less, European and Greek markets.
I just wanted to ask, it's quite, so you are a shipbroker right now. Of course, you have different specialty as a shipbroker. You can work in the chartering side, on the S&P side. Why did you choose to work in the S&P side?
Well, Paul Louis, that was something that happened randomly. I was applying at the beginning of my career, and I was chosen, let's say, of my current company, which is an S&P company. And I really do not regret it, because working from the inside and seeing how S&P and how chartering works, I prefer S&P now that I have the knowledge how the two specialties work.
Okay, may I ask why did you prefer the S&P?
Well, I believe that what we are getting being an S&P broker is much higher than what you will get being a chartering broker. Nonetheless, in order a project to mature, for a chartering broker is much faster compared to an S&P broker, which it might require, from starting from a month or even 6 months, depending how it would be the pace of the two, parties.
Okay.
The buyer and seller, yes.
Okay, interesting. And did you have specific type of vessels as a S&P broker? You are specialized, or you cover all the range of on types of vessels?
Well, again, it is a client-oriented market. As you will already know, being a master student, owners like to diversify their fleets in order to share the risk and, have one foot in dry bulk, other foot in tanker, or other foot in container ships. So some of the clients would require this time to purchase a bulk carrier. Next time they want to sell, let's say, a container ship from the diversified fleet. So there's no actual specialty in that sense. Comparing it to chartering brokers, who are specialized, either on specific sizes or specific types, like handy size, handy max, or tanker chartering, or LPG, LNG chartering.
Okay, interesting. On as a shipbroker, people always think you only sales on purchase vessels, but is it more than that? I mean, are you providing like fuel service on I can say advices to your customer?
Yes, to a certain extent, an S&P broker is required, to have a large skill set of knowledge and knowledges from many different professions. What I was saying, that you need to have a large range of knowledges from several professions that are involved into shipping. For instance, when you're reading the contract, you need to have some legal idea of what you are reading and how the implementation of the contract, which is called MOA, Memorandum of Agreement. There are several types of MOAs, like Norwegian sales form or Nippon sales. The NSF and Norwegian sales form is the oldest and the most applied. When you're dealing with Japanese, you have the Nippon sale, which is made from Japanese, and then there is a new one, the Singapore made. So every ship owner, buyer or seller, has his own preference in order to protect his interests, and you are obliged to have an idea what would be the implication in case some of these terms mentioned in those contracts is not fulfilled. So There you go. You have legal knowledge. What does it mean legally if this term is not applied appropriately or is not applied in full? Another thing, you need to know how it will affect commercially. For instance, during the S&P transaction, if there are some delays, if the vessel has already been fixed by the new owner, and then there is, for instance, a force majeure situation that will delay the delivery of the ship, which means that the charterer of the new owner might claim to the new owner. So there is, a chain of reactions if something doesn't go well. So you need to have this kind of knowledge.
Okay, quite interesting. You mentioned about those contracts like Norwegian, Nippon contract, the MOA. Is it like a flexible contract? I mean, as a broker, you can always add some clause, add some.
Correct. I mean, it's very flexible, but it is also very standard. Those contracts are worked through many years. Yes, so these contracts are actually consisting of the essence of S&P, and they are a helpful tool. So every time we don't have to write a contract from scratch, we have this and we use it as a base to add or to delete or to amend. And this makes our job, more easy, more efficient, and faster.
Okay. I imagine each broker has his own, I can say, trick to make the contract in like the most convenient way for him and for the client. I mean, no one has the same contract. It depends the broker on the company you are working with.
Maybe some clauses of the contract, but the basic contract, more or less, in a large percentage, remains the same.
Okay, quite interesting. And then now, quite interesting topic is more about the claims issues as a shipbroker. Based on your experience, what kind of big trouble you can have just to make the link for the importance to have a very solid contract?
Well, you need to be specific. You need to be specific in terms of the delivery, in terms of where do you want the vessel to be delivered, in which area, and what is going to happen, for instance, if in that area there is some sort of problem. For instance, this case was highlighted during the COVID periods where we had a lot of ships that could not be delivered because at the delivery port there was quarantine. Crews could not fly to change the seller's crew, and then we had a lot of deals basically fail at the early stages of the pandemic. However, as the time progressed, there was a solution to apply the COVID clause, and in order to be more prepared. So the COVID clause was actually describing what is happening in case that at the agreed port we cannot have the delivery of the vessel due to COVID regulations.
Okay.
So that was like that provided an extra layer of safety to the deal, and also comfort to the parties that the deal can go through even if there is some difficulties caused by the pandemic. So this is just a simple example how these things work.
Okay. Based on your experience, or not yourself, but some stories, did you know, like, do you have some example, like very quite impactful example, just for the listeners, they can just imagine how important it is, on what kind of troubles we can have as a broker?
Yes, I have a story. It happened to me a few years ago. It was with a bulk. He was interested to give his vessel for demolition. So he had approached my office and myself, and he asked to receive an offer for demolition basis subcontinent. Now, demolition is a little bit complicated in terms that there are fresh regulations that require the vessels to be demolished in accordance with either Hong Kong Convention, green recycling, in order to make sure that it will be demolished, dismantled, if I may say, the ship with safety for the workers and with safety for the environment. All these residuals of the dismantling process, that it will be disposed in accordance with specific regulations to protect the environment. So depends how you want to dismantle your ship. For instance, this ship owner had obtained finance from a very large European bank, and this bank required in the loan terms, it had a clause that required to dismantle the ship in a green way of recycling. That was not something that I was aware at the beginning. It was not disclosed by the seller. Why is that? Because if you go for conventional, let's say, recycling, not green one, the vessel will achieve a much higher price. If you go for green recycling, because of the higher standards, then the seller will have less profit.
Okay.
In that case, and at that time, the price difference was exceeding $1.5 million. The green recycling more expensive by $1.5 million, and the conventional recycling was $1.5 million more. So I still was not aware of the preference of the financier. The vessel should be recycled in a green way, and we are about to sign the MOA, which was fixed basis on the conventional way of dismantling. And last moment, the bank stepped in and said, "What guys are you doing now is not in accordance with the loan with the finance that I provided to this owner. So stop it immediately, otherwise there will be legal implications." And then we had a seller who actually ran off the agreed contract because he wanted to explore if it was possible for him to overrule the finance clause which dictated that it would be dismantling in a green way.
So can you explain a little bit the importance of demolition and scrapping of a vessel in your jobs? Because I think it's quite related in S&P, it's quite related.
Yes, correct. Let me start first by saying that a job of an S&P broker includes basically three things: second-hand sales, new building orders, and dismantling/demolition of ships. Those are the three core, let's say, things that an S&P broker is doing. Beyond that, you can do projects, you can do more specific, more specialized things, but those three consist the core of the job of S&P broker. And in terms of demolition is very important because that is the basic way of reducing capacity of the world fleet, and that actually affects the demand and supply equilibrium.
Interesting.
The other way of reducing capacity is by accidents when a ship sinking, so it's permanently removed from the world fleet capacity. So when a ship is idle, might not be, working, might not have a charter. However, potentially her capacity remains active. So it is still counted in the world fleet capacity.
Okay.
So that's why demolition is very important. Another reason that it is very important is that when we recycle a ship, many of the components of the ship are mechanical, like main engine or generators or cranes or grabs. They are actually resold. So we have a reuse, let's say, of these components of the ship, and also the steel that's actually melted and processed into other products, from cars to stoves, cooking stoves, or fridge, or even the real estate sector.
Okay, interesting. As a S&P Shipbroker, do we have like a percentage of your workload? I mean, you doing more new build, used vessels, or demolition, or it depends everyone?
In my case, I'm mostly doing second-hand ships and demolition.
Okay.
However, it is again a client-oriented market.
Yes.
Of course, there are specialized brokers in new building. Some brokers are doing only new building. However, it doesn't exclude a broker that is doing demolition and second-hand that will have a client asking him to investigate a possibility of placing a new building order. What is important for a broker is his network. So a broker is as valuable as his network. Why? Because you are going to use your connections, your network connections, to obtain information and to share also your information, and then process this information and make it something interesting or valuable for your client.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. But I imagine network is a big, in this job is quite crucial. But to come back to the market elasticity for demolition, is like, for example, at this period of time, a lot of ship owners want to make demolition of their fleet. The price will increase. In this case, the demand will decrease. Is it the market completely like that for demolition as well, or is another story?
Well, for all the maritime shipping students, I'm going to remind them, in the maritime economics book of Martin Stopford, for instance, we have the four markets. There is a specific draw that shows the four markets and how these four markets actually are connected and also affect each other. So for a ship owner, for instance, to take his vessel into demolition, there must be some specific factors that would lead him into this decision. Maybe the vessel needs, it's old and for instance, passing her dry dock, it doesn't make sense because passing her dry dock might spend almost close to 1 million if we're talking for like Panamax, 800 to 1 million US dollars. So maybe it doesn't worth to spend it. Or maybe the vessel is, so you take it to demolition. Or maybe the vessel needs to apply, to be compliant with new environmental regulations about CII or EEXI, or to install ballast water treatment. And the cost of installation, it doesn't make sense commercially wise, considering the the remaining life of the ship, of the asset. And lastly, another factor could be the market conditions that would lead the ship owner to give the vessel for demolition. The more ships we have for demolition, this is very general, of course. When we're talking about demolition, which means demolition in our mind, we need to connect it with reduction of the capacity, right? So we need to examine it very carefully together with new additions, which is new building. So what we are deducting from the market and what we are adding, because we might deduct a lot by demolishing ships. However, the new building orders in the next 2-3 years might add on much more than what we have demolished. So this is something that we need to keep into consideration, plus and minus.
Okay, that's very interesting what you say. And is it like maybe like if you demolish a lot of, I don't know if we say in English, like if you making a lot of demolition of ships, is it good for the used on the new build market as well? Because ship owner will need to increase their fleet.
In a general rule, again, it's very general because we need to be very specific of the market conditions that these things happen. In a general rule, a ship owner will give his vessel for demolition because technical reasons, or he cannot, or because the vessel is not commercially viable.
I think to understand economical concepts, it's quite important, especially for young people who want to work in the shipbroking market.
Yes, that is correct. Many young people who want to start their careers into the shipping industry, they consider it as something totally irrelevant from what they have experienced so far or from what they know so far. However, shipping is demand and supply with, a dash of geopolitics and all the involved parties' interest. So it's not very different from other professions. However, you need to have a combination of knowledges to apply in order to be a successful professional, like economics, like legal, like maybe insurance, slightly chartering, some technical information, what is this main engine? Is it eco main engine? Some regulatory information. For instance, if you have a Chinese flag or Indonesian flag ship, can a foreign ship owner trade under this flag? No, they cannot, because there is a cabotage.
Okay.
It's a French word. I mean,
yeah, by the way,
you already know. You already know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, in S&P, I think it's quite. You need more technical knowledge than chartering because you need to know at least the ship itself, how it works, the different engines, the different flag identification, etc. I think.
Not very deep technical knowledge. I mean, of course, the deeper understanding and technical knowledge you have, the more useful you could eventually be for your client. However, it's not a necessity.
Okay.
You just need to know some basic stuff that it would be required by your client. Your client is not going to ask you a lot of technical questions, or even if he does, you are passing this to the seller or to the buyer. technical department, and they are responsible to reply.
Okay. And I want to ask you another question, Harry. It's like, can you describe maybe step by step the process of, first of all, demolish a ship, and the second process about buying used ship?
Yeah, of course. Demolition is actually usually very, very fast. In terms that you present the vessel to the cash buyer. Cash buyer is actually an intermediate between the S&P broker, who is actually representative of the seller, and the scrapyard.
Okay.
The place that the vessel will be dismantled. Sometimes cash buyers are owners of scrapyards. Other times they are not. So you present the vessel for demolition with the appropriate information in order to evaluate her steel and ROB remaining on board in terms of bunkers. If the vessel, for instance, is a tanker, it will be more valuable compared to a bulk carrier, because the steel would be more valuable, the tubes that are used on board the tanker. Or if it is a simple tanker, epoxy, and then you have the same size tanker with stainless steel on board, then it will be much more profitable for the seller.
Okay.
Or if you have spare parts on board the vessel, again, it will be more valuable, because all those things, there is a second-hand trading market for all these components, general main engine or main engine or generators. There is a second-hand market. So the ship owner is giving me the ship and instructs me to provide him with offers for demolition. The demolition is happening basically in three major areas in subcontinent, in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and less also is happening in Turkey.
Okay.
Yes. So it instructed me to give him offers. I present the vessel to the cash buyers. The cash buyers, they present the ship to a lot of scrapyards. The scrapyards are getting offer for the steel and for the material they will resell. And then I receive the first offer or indication. I'm presenting the indication to the owner / seller. And then we are entering the first stage of negotiations. Okay. The negotiations in the demolition are very fast. Usually within less than a week, within a few days, we can have a deal. And then after we have the deal, we are signing the contract, and then we have the deal, and then the delivery process starts. For that reason, we have a roadmap, if we may say, the MOA. Which actually dictates on every step how it will be until the delivery and what will happen until the delivery of the vessel. The delivery of the vessel could be either as is, where it means the vessel is right now, for instance, in Indonesia, and the seller does not want to remove the vessel from Indonesia to another point. So the buyer is going to have his own crew or his own towage to get the vessel from Indonesia and bring it to the subcontinent for dismantling. Another way, it would be the seller to take the vessel from Indonesia at his own cost and risk, and bring it to the dismantling areas outside of the scrapyard. Now, because at the second case, the ship owner is undertaking cost and risk to relocating the vessel at the desired area of the buyer, he obtains a much higher profit compared to an as-is delivery of the vessel, that he doesn't assume the cost and the risk of transporting the vessel to the demolition area.
Okay.
That's, yes.
Okay,
That's one in brief. I mean, I'm explaining in brief. Now, on the second-hand transaction, in this case, the actors are both ship owners, one buyer, one seller. On the other case, on the Demolition, it was one seller, which was a ship owner, and then a scrapyard, different actors. So on the second-hand sale, again, we have the seller who is instructing one or multiple brokers, depending on his preference, to present the vessel into the shipping market. So the shipbroker either circulates the vessel into the market if it is something that the seller desires, or the shipbroker is doing it in a more quiet way and approaches directly other close shipbrokers or directly other ship owners / buyers who are interested to purchase this kind of ships and presenting the ship. And then it starts again the whole procedure. It triggers the whole procedure of second-hand transaction, receiving the technical information, inspecting the online class records, which is something that the classification society of the vessel would provide. And it is like a history of all the things, important things that happen to the ship, potential accidents, or, anything that has happened, or maintenance, routine maintenance, emergency maintenance.
It's like buying a car.
Exactly. So if he's satisfied with the technical information on the online class record inspection of the vessel, then he might proceed. There are two options here. He might proceed into physical inspection of the vessel in order to send his staff or appoint a big independent surveying company to conduct an inspection report for him for his technical department evaluation. This is one way. The other way is, okay, I'm happy with the online class records. I want to offer basis waiving physical inspection. This way of doing business, we are seeing it mostly in Asian buyers. I mean, I have seen it a bit in the past, like 5 or 6 years ago, a lot by Chinese buyers. Some of those buyers, they didn't care a lot about the condition of the vessel. They just wanted the vessel at the lowest possible price. In case you have a waiving inspection, which means you don't care much about the vessel's condition. In these cases, you also offer slightly lower. If assuming that the vessel is okay, if you have a buyer waiving and a buyer inspecting physically, the inspecting physically is not a rule. However, my experience says that the buyer who inspected and has a better picture of the vessel will offer based on that. However, the buyer who is offering waiving inspection will offer as low as possible.
Okay.
He doesn't care for the condition. After the first offer, we are entering the negotiations. So we might have a couple of rounds of negotiations. It might last 1 week, 2 weeks. In some cases, we had projects that negotiation undertook like 3 weeks and then stopped. And then we did follow up. And then after 6 months, the market conditions were helping to resume the negotiations. So it's like this back and forth. After you sign the MOA, you have the deal, and then you use as a roadmap, as a guidance for everything that is happening. What is written in the MOA? This is happening now. Okay, what does the MOA says about that? What have we agreed? It is everything in the MOA.
Okay,
until the delivery of the vessel.
Okay. For the delivery of the vessel, so it's like Incoterm with container market. It's like who is responsible to, for example, you sell the vessel, and who is responsible to bring the vessel to the destination. So this term is everything as in MOA.
Yes, exactly. Everything is cleared. It would be really nice because there are free samples of MOA online. If after this podcast or with the audience who is interested to go online and check the NSF and the Nippon sale. Basically, let's start with the NSF, Norwegian sales form, and have a look on the clauses, the terms, and try to understand what actually every term, every clause mean.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's I will put if I don't forget to put the link on the description of this podcast of the official MOA Norwegian one. I think it's the most common one, especially in Europe. Can you talk now about I will say like as a shipbroker, the add value you bring to the table? I imagine this is the networking. For example, during demolition, you need to contact the scrap yards, and you need to know them. You need to have good contact with them. I think this is your add value as a broker.
Not only. Yes, the network is very important because when you want to buy or sell a ship on behalf of your client, you need to utilize part of this network in order to satisfy your client and in order to make profit also for you.
Okay.
We will talk a bit later about how are things, in the shipbrokering profession financially.
Yeah.
So first of all is network, and then is the negotiation skills. Those are very basic things. For instance, negotiations. I mean, we living, in the era of AI. Why we don't have like a program? You input the vessel, what you want, and then the program matches you, buyer, seller. This is the vessel. Let's sign the contract. Why you don't have this? You don't have this because you still need. It's necessary to have a filter. So the broker acts also as a filter between the two parties, passing only the necessary information in order the deal to be concluded.
Okay.
And of course, to protect your client, but if the deal is concluded under the appropriate terms and conditions, then your client will also be safe and happy at the same time. So sometimes, because we, as S&P brokers, sometimes we have to make cold phone calls, and check whether a vessel is for sale directly with the ship owner. And then you have I have come across a ship owner that the name of the vessel was his mother name.
Oh.
So I'm calling and I'm saying, hey, I didn't know that. So I'm calling and I'm saying, hey, my client evaluates the vessel, your vessel, like this, and it's a very old vessel. And then he comes to me, he says, you know what? I'm not selling this vessel. I'm emotionally connected because the name of the vessel is my mother's. And, you have these weird kind of situations which it's not necessary to pass all this useless information to your client. I mean, what I want to say that if you have these two parties interacting directly without a filter, maybe you will not have a deal because ego goes in the middle. My ship is the best, well-maintained ship. Why you want to buy it for such a low price? Just an example.
Yeah. So emotional intelligence is a big thing.
Yes. So this is one of the skills that it is required in order to become a shipbroker.
Okay.
It's not like doing the job of a postman,
Yeah.
passing exactly what one party says to the other one. At some points, you might have to do it, but when the deal is done and it's in the right path, you have nothing to do. You're just passing emails. However, in order to reach to that level, you need to have filter everything.
Okay.
In order, to put the deal on track, on the rail.
Okay. quite insightful. But now that you provide a lot of insight, let's talk about more the commission aspect, financial aspect of Shipbroker. Everyone asks me this question. Everyone in the comments, like, it's good you every time you interview a Shipbroker, but you never ask this question. But now I want to ask this question: what is the commission, the salary, how it works, all this?
Well, it varies from company to company. The general rule is that you have a base salary, which again varies depending how many years you are in this profession and where do you live. And so the base salary can vary extensively. And then you have the commission structure. Usually the shipbrokering company, not the shipbroker, gets 1% of the transaction. So we are talking for a 10 million transaction, then 100,000 goes to the S&P company.
Okay.
And then, depending on the agreement that you have with the S&P company and your experience, you might get out of it 15, 20, or 30, or even higher, depending on what you have agreed.
Okay.
This is subject to your experience and subject to the company and the scheme that the company works. For instance, there are many firms, shipbrokering firms, that they have a minimum of commission that they require for themselves in order to cover the expenses. So they say, you do deals and up to the amount of 100,000 per person, you're not getting paid. Above 100,000, you're getting paid 40%.
Okay.
You need to cover the expenses of the company. You get the base salary every month normally. However, in order to make the additional profit from the commission, you need to cover possibly some expenses for the operation of the company. This is something that large S&P broker firms abroad are doing it. In Greece, I don't think that this is the rule. I'm based right now in Athens. So in Greece, I don't think that this is the rule. You're starting getting commission from the first deal.
Okay.
I think an average commission should be 25 to 30%.
Okay. And do you have some brokers who don't get like this fixed salary or only commission with expense?
Not to my knowledge. I think it would not be. It's not something that it would be common to work like that.
Okay, so always have a fixed.
Yes, because we need to make it clear that there are some years that you might have 5, 6, 7, 10 deals, and in a good market when your clients have appetite to purchase ships, and there are some other years that you might have 1, 2, or none. So you need to have a way to be able to live.
Okay.
And so the base salary is very important.
Okay, quite interesting. On another things quite interesting to talk about. Shipbroker, I noticed everyone wants to be a shipbroker because everyone thinks this is the dream job in terms of salary financially. Is it true, or is it like? I think it's like a minority of brokers who can be very comfortable.
Well, Paul Louis, I'm talking to you right now from my mansion in Miami.
Yeah, no, of course, it's like a myth. I mean, it's like every job.
Yes. I mean, that's the dream. That's a dream for, not for this profession, but for any profession. So I think that there need to be a balance between reality and expectations. Yes, you can become rich. No, you will not become rich in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. It takes a lot of time. And yes, you can become rich from other professions as well. You don't have to be an S&P broker to become rich.
Yeah.
So I think if you work hard enough, to accomplish your dreams, yes, you can become rich. It's not something easy, the competition is fierce. You have so many shipbrokering firms competing, and the flow of information is so vast and so fast that a lot of people, they cannot keep up with it.
Okay.
So we tend, when we're younger, we tend to romanticize it, saying, "Oh, okay, I will become an S&P broker, and I will be extremely wealthy in 2, 3, 5 years." That could be the case, but it's some sort of like the American dream, you know.
Yeah.
The more you work, the more you're going to achieve. But it depends of your motivation. Like, why are you entering this profession? You are entering this profession because you like shipping, because you want to become rich, because you belong to a shipping family, maybe, or because for any other reason. So we need to understand what is that actually wake up every morning and to go to our job. What wakes you up? What motivates you?
Okay. Make sense. And just about is it for the scrapped, for demolition, the commission 1% as well? Or it's other commission?
All right. So usually it could be 1%. Usually. But there are cases that because of the larger competition, you might cut your commission to 0.5 depending, or you might say the company will get a lump sum amount of 50,000 or depending.
Okay.
In the case, let's stick with that, just 1% for everything.
Okay, yes, because I imagine it depends the country. Do we have like some countries or the commission is much higher, or it's
No. It's basically depending on the conditions that you're negotiating at that moment. The difference is that when you are doing demolition, you have address commission, buyer's address commission. So you might charge as a shipbroking firm 1%, and then there is a 3% address commission, which actually covers the intermediate, the cash buyer, and the scrapyard. So they use this kind of way of doing deal.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we cover quite good for the financial part. Let's talk two last topic. Especially this one is more about the market, because you mentioned you worked in Shanghai.
Yes, I was living in Shanghai for 11 years, and I returned back about 2.5 years ago.
Okay, and what can you say about the different culture? I mean, in terms of shipbroking, is it different to work in Asia as a shipbroker than Europe, or it's quite global?
Yes, it is. The culture is very different, and the cultural distance, it's something that you need to take into consideration. I will share with you one experience that I had when I was living in China, and I would visit Chinese ship owners. We will have chilled meetings. Usually they might even smoke or offer me a cigar. We will drink tea. They have a ceremonial tea, they are doing. And we will be very relaxed. And usually after the meeting, even if it was the first meeting, the ship owner himself or the S&P guy of the ship owner would invite me to go to lunch in order for him to get to know me better and figure out if we can work together and how I can be of value to him and his company.
Okay.
On the opposite side of the globe, in Greece, if you go and do an S&P meeting, most likely you are not going to meet the ship owner himself. You will meet someone who is doing S&P. Most likely the meeting would be 30, 45 minutes at best. And most likely you will be offered a coffee and it will be like in a more formal way. And after the meeting, there's no follow-ups like going to coffee or going for lunch or everything. So we have two different types of mentality here. The Chinese who actually want to meet you in order to gain the trust with you and try to do business. And then you have the Greek one, which they will take you to dinner only after you conclude the deal as a sign of appreciation for your effort.
Okay. Quite interesting.
Chinese, they take you for in order to see if they can trust you and if you can cultivate this relationship and end up into a deal. Greeks, they take you to Greek scholars, they will take you out for lunch, for instance, only as a sign of respect of working for them. So this is like, different culture, different style.
Yeah, that's why it's interesting to mention it. But in Asia, I have no clue about, especially in China. Do we have a lot of shipbrokers there? Because for me, shipbroker is more like it's quite common in Europe, like especially in UK, London. We have those big competitive broker. But in China, is it the case, or it's most of them are ship owners?
So many. Yes. Not only China. In China, Singapore, Shanghai, Singapore, Tokyo, Seoul, of course, Athens, in Norway also, Europe in general, and a few in United States. So China, for sure, it has a lot. Maybe we don't know them, we don't know, they are not like big firms, maybe one-man show firms, but there are a lot.
Okay. But I think it could be very interesting to interview a broker because they are another way of thinking, seeing the market, dealing with everything. So it's quite interesting.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting country and it's a different culture. However, I have to say, because I was living 11 years there, so I have witnessed the change. They have become more and more professional. Local S&P brokers. At the beginning, even the communication was not really good. But nowadays, they have reached, the appropriate level to compete with other sea brokering firms.
Interesting. So thank you. And I wish you, of course, all the best. Thank you, Harry. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you for listening and watching this episode. We are looking forward to bring you more insights from maritime professionals, experts, and students. Do not hesitate to follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Your support means a lot to us and helps us to bring you more content.